We are back in session. Here's another properties question.
Hold the mic up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Here's another. Usually I can talk even without a mic. How many properties does the school district own that are not used at the present time for educational purposes? And what are they used for?
So we own the old island site on Eagle, which is now an empty lot. We own the Tidelands, the property out here. We own the I guess, expectation of 12 acres out on Alameda Point that is not being used, and that's it. Otherwise, oh, I'm sorry, and parts of historic Alameda High School, the adult school, part of the east and west wings that are not seismically safe to have folks in, and they're in the process of being shored up so that the building can be saved from itself in the event of an earthquake. Other than that, we are using all of our facilities unless the maintenance yard. I'm sorry. So we're using the maintenance yard, but it's old buildings, and it houses maintenance, staff, trucks, painting, equipment, that kind of thing. So and it's not meant for classrooms or schools. Those are our only other properties other than the schools that you see: Woodstock, Longfellow, Ruby Bridges, so on and so forth.
Thank you. We have a bunch more questions about wood. This is an interesting question. I'm not sure that I even quite understand it, but how does the fact that Bay Farm and Earhart were designated innovative, meaning only for students in those zones, not magnet, that's another another section or kind of school, affect equity issues in the district? And of course there are many. You might want to address equity issues altogether, because I think there are a lot of people that feel that there's some questions along those lines also, that there are equity issues between the East End and West End and Bay Farm in terms of school facilities and delivery of educational opportunities.
So somebody try to answer the question. Can I read the question?
Yes, it's right there.
Okay, so let me try to answer this question first and then try to address equity across the district. So innovative programs. So part of Measure A and part of this notion of choice has been looking at not only magnet schools, which I described as students can come from all over the district, but then also looking at innovative programs. And so everyone in the district had the opportunity, teachers, administrators, to turn in an innovative program or magnet school, and then those were reviewed against a rubric, and then they were either approved or not approved. I brought recommendations to the Board of Education. And then those were then funded. Each of them had a budget. And so at the time, there was, Mylan was approved, so that's a magnet, the old Washington School, and that's been something that we've been talking about for a long time, that Washington School needed something dramatically different. And so when we talk about issues of equity, that was a school that when I came had real struggles. Title I school had struggles in terms of families not choosing that school as one example, just not choosing that school, and knowing that we needed to do something different there. So Mylan was one of the programs we invested lots of money into. We fund smaller class sizes in 4 and 5. We fund an arts integrated program. They're in their first year. And I want to say there were 100 kindergarten families. Washington School had not seen 100 families kind of knocking down the door. Families now are coming from all over Alameda to go to Mylan. when in fact it was Washington that wasn't the case. So that's one of the examples of this notion of equity. When people say that we're just doing it at Bay Farm and Earhart, we're doing this programming and work at other schools as well in the district. So Washington was definitely a place of focus. We also put hundreds of thousands of dollars into facilities work at Washington. Still lots to do, but painting and putting up bulletin boards and fixing the playground and putting in a new playground, because if you saw the old playground, not good for kids. So we did that actually through a cell tower contract that we did. We were able to pay for playgrounds out of that money. So I say that to say that then at Bay Farm and Earhart, they turned in Earhart a science, there's a science specialist, and they are doing a science integration, and Bay Farm is doing technology, and they're doing a K-8 program. And one of the things, as much as Bay Farm is not a magnet school, Bay Farm is an open enrollment school. And so you can, in 6, 7, and 8, when there are seats available, and I should advertise that there are seats available right now in 7th grade, that families can choose to go to that school instead of going to their home school. So it is an open enrollment school. It's not just for Bay Farm families. And what we were intending to do, and will continue to do, is really pilot, incubate these programs, and then look to see how we can open these programs at other schools. So really looking at the science work that we're doing at Earhart, where next can we implement that same science work? And we have a pilot this year where we are working with 10 elementary teachers and administrators around the Bay Science Initiative to really reinvigorate science in elementary schools, support teachers to do that. And this science teacher at Earhart has been a part of that group, and then will be able to help us to implement it across the district. So I think it's really important, this notion of incubation, piloting, and then looking where else in the district can we grow these great programs. So that's what's happening with Bay Farm, Earhart, and again, Maya Lin and Junior Jets. So if you're kind of looking geographically, the funding, the support is at Bay Farm and Earhart, and then again, getting Junior Jets up and running at NSNL, Innovative Program, and then Maya Lin. So it's really divided across the island. And the intention this year is to open in September Junior Jets 6-8 magnet program, and supporting this notion of young people being able to, as 7th graders have the same teacher in 7th grade and 11th grade, looking at sharing 7th, 8th, and 9th graders in languages, being able to bring music all the way through to the 6th grade, but really having a really clear articulated 6-12 program. So I think that's a little bit around the equity of funding or innovative programs. In addition to that, we spend a lot of time, school sites, teachers, faculty with principals, looking at who is struggling in our district and needs additional support and help. And we have given greater funding, greater intervention support, greater classes to schools that need greater support. We differentiate funding around Title I so that we're investing more in elementary than we are in middle and high school, because again, we have an articulated school district for the most part, not in all schools, but we have most of our students come from K-12. We have transiency on the west end, and really looking at how do we support young people as they come in. So we've done a lot of work at Wood, really thinking about young people. I want to say over the past couple of years, 20 students arrived to us in 8th grade that we have not had kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, all the way through to 8th grade. So what are the supports there? So we created different math classes and supports, interventions, support after school for young people who need that kind of help. So we recognize that not every school needs the same, and some young people need more and different.
Thanks.
I have been in the school district as a teacher and a principal for 39 years. And one of the things I witnessed, we have innovative programs. As soon as the money runs out, the programs don't exist, even though we knew that this was work for kids. I am encouraged, and one of the issues that I always bring at the board meeting is how do we build capacity and how do we sustain it over time? So it doesn't just be for 3 years or 5 years. And I'm encouraged in regards to the innovative programs as well as the magnet school that, especially with the science group that was created, that the Earhart teacher, science teacher is in part of that. The problem had always been that with different elementary schools is not having the resources, not having a science teacher at every school. So how then can we create a network where teachers are supported and that this can be sustained over time? Once the teacher is able to have the resources and the administrators can support them, then the magic happens. Then that program becomes sustainable.
Thank you, and I want to say that Kirsten's articulation of the junior jets and the high school program and how they interface with each other is the first time I've heard that explanation. We had some questions about why don't you put junior jets at Wood and put the and the ACLC at Encinal, but I think that was the first time I'd heard articulated how it was going to be utilized. It's real important, I think, for people at forums like this to ask questions that elicit that kind of information, because otherwise I would not have known what the vision was and how it would have to happen at the same campus. I might have asked the same question. We have time, I think, just for one more question. We have an outlier question, sort of, that is not a topic. Oh gosh, where is it? I should recognize his handwriting, actually. No, I've said who asked the question. This has to do with the swim center. Another one of our sticky wickets, huh? Why did the ASUD not work out a way to upgrade the facilities at Emma Hood Swim Center when the city was offering to put up the money to do the upgrade? And that's a question I've wondered about myself.
Thank you. So these are all the complexities of being in a school district. I wish that we could just, partner and build what we need to build, but the reality is we have to follow the division of state architecture. That often means a few more obstacles, a little more money, longer time, but at the end of the day, safety for children. And that's why the division of state architecture was put into place. So we just had a subcommittee meeting between the city and the school district, public meeting, and I think recorded, so you can hear it for yourself on our district website. It's posted with minutes, in which we had a whole discussion about this possibility. I really appreciate that the city is willing to work with us to figure out these pools, because they are, a sticky wicket, tough stuff. But the solution that the city came up with for Emma Hood does not work under the division of state architecture. So we are committed to working with the city to figure out what will work. And so we have commissioned a pool person to help us to think about, well, what would it take to have a pool complex aquatic center at Emma Hood, and what would be the cost, and how would we do this? Because the proposal as it was written did not take into consideration using the division of state architecture. And so there was some discussion back and forth, well, maybe we just don't need the division of state architecture. And the reality is we just can't do that. we have to, as a school district, by law, go through the Division of State Architecture. And there's all kinds of rationale behind that and why we have to do that. So we want to take this beginning proposal and say, okay, what could we do? How could we make this work? And so the subcommittee had a discussion Tuesday, and we could come in closer agreement around looking at Ensignel's pool. Because there's still, I think, a lot of community engagement that needs to happen with water polo coaches, swim coaches, athletic directors, swim community, to make sure we're all on the same page about what's really needed. Because I think there is still some disagreement about what that looks like. And I think it's really important that we hear all those voices. Second, we could come to a little closer agreement about Ensignel because it looked like, though who knows once we kind of get the estimates, that it's more of a cosmetic nature. The things there we could start to work on and start to think about, you know, what is phase 1 of fixing that, phase 2, phase 3, because ultimately we have the same goal. These are all of our students, this is our community, these are our pools, how are we gonna solve this? But we can't solve it with a proposal that doesn't follow the rules that we have to follow as a school district. I can't recommend that to the board. The board couldn't even do it if they wanted to, because they have to follow the Division of State Architecture. And that's really the sticking point right now. So again, our goal is first to figure out how do we fix Ensignel, because there seems to be some agreement there. And then to look long-term at, you know, how could we do Emma Hood, again, for a lower cost, because that cost is always an issue, and really following the rules we have to follow. And I know that's hard and complicated, and people don't always like my answer before when I said I often have to tell the board bad, terrible, and horrible. These are one of those moments that I had to tell the city, I'm sorry, but we can't do it that way. We have to figure out a way to do it under the Division of State Architecture. So it's not at all that we don't want the city's help. It's not that we don't want to work together. It's that we have to do it under the rules that we are governed by.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions here that address either the superintendent or the chairman of the board as individuals. What is your individual opinion about this or that? And they're good questions. I'm not asking those questions tonight because I'm trying to keep it as general as possible so that the questions most of us have are the first to be asked. And since we're running out of time, I'm going to suggest that those of you that have questions of individuals, be it the superintendent or a member of the school board, you know, there's email, telephone, getting them at our Meet Your Public Officials, which is coming up. And, you know, just kind of getting them up against the wall and talking to them. But really, each of us can talk to our civic leaders individually and ask them those questions quite directly. And I think that sometimes we're surprised when we ask those questions directly how thoughtful the answers can be. But it does give us an opportunity. So I wanted to, is there anybody here from the Meet Your Public Officials?
Ruth.
Other than Ruth? You want to say just a word about our Meet Your Public Officials upcoming?
About our upcoming event.
Our event, yes.
Oh,
We do this once a year.
Oh, all right. Yes, on April 25th, which is a Thursday night, we are going to be having our annual fundraiser and mixer, which is called Meet Your Public Officials, which is at the Elks Club, the Elks Lodge, from 5:30 to 7:30. And you will be able to buy tickets at the door. Tickets are $10. This is a chance for you to meet a number of your elected and appointed public officials from the city council, the school board, the health board. Rob Bonds is coming. We all
Ticket, and it's our only fundraiser every year, our big fundraiser every year. So anyway, I just got,
Thursday night, April
Yeah, at the Elks Lodge down in the Rathskeller. Oh, the healthcare film.
To announce the healthcare show, why don't
Can
we
I,
do that?
Gretch, can you wait on that, because I just got informed that I'm ending early, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was 8:30, and I've been informed it's 9 o'clock. So we can take a couple of more questions if everybody's amenable to that. Okay, I think so. Here's a good one. Why were business leaders involved in developing the Common Core for public schools? That's provocative.
That's a good question.
Okay. Why were business leaders involved in developing the Common Core for public schools?
So as I read and understand this, my understanding was that this notion was that you needed to prepare young people for career, and that we needed business folks to be able to tell us, not unlike higher ed and public school teachers with all of those different experiences in the room, to say this is what's needed, because so much has been done and said about whether young people are prepared to be in the current workforce. And so that was the intention of that, was so that young people have the thinking skills, strategic skills, cooperative, collaborative skills to be able to be in our current workforce, or the workforce that we don't even, we can't even plan for yet.
Thank you. I thought that was kind of an interesting question, actually. All right. Back to the junior jets. This is a very general question. What are the funding streams for which the district is responsible? I think there are probably thousands of them, but you might give us the highlights.
I'm going to do the best I can. So on the federal level, there are a number of Title I, Title II, Title III funds. They come with the greatest accountability and the greatest oversight from the federal government. From the state, there are similar categorical funds, EIA, which is Economic Impact Aid monies. There is general fund dollars. In the past, there was probably an alphabet soup of probably 36 or 46 different buckets of money that then, over the past couple of years, the state of California turned into what is known as Tier 3 dollars. So they said, okay, all this money that we used to say you had to spend on this, and this, now you can flex it all and spend it on whatever you want, and they called it Tier 3. Now they're taking away Tier 3 dollars, and they're calling everything general fund dollars. And then with the beginning of local control funding formula, my understanding is that even more of those small buckets of money will just all be wrapped into general fund dollars. So school districts can decide locally how we spend our money without any kind of strings attached from the state. And again, that's going to go through a whole policy discussion. I doubt it will be resolved by this June, but maybe by next June that will be resolved. And then you then need to step back as a school district and say, which programs are you going to fund and which programs are you not going to fund? An example in our district that has been totally flexed, so you don't have to provide the program, is a program near and dear to my heart called CalSafe, where we fund at about $90,000, I think, support at Island High School for young people who have children. And so we provide care during the day and parenting classes and support, and what we've seen happen at Island is greater and greater young people graduating. So these are young people who are on their second, third, 50th chance. And so it wouldn't be a program that I would want to cut, even though the state of California no longer funds it as CalSafe. I recommend to the board each year that we continue that funding because it's really important to our student outcomes, just as one example. But I think as time goes on, it will be more and more open to use that money however school districts will want to use them. Yeah, so ultimately I think it's all going to be called general fund money. Again, from the federal government, it's the alphabet soup of Title I, Title II, Title III. I can't even think of another. There are just a bazillion of those kinds of things. And again, with all kinds of rules, lottery money, you can only use for textbooks. But there are still money that they give to you in a small amount, and you must use it exactly on that purpose. But I think it's going to become more and more open over time.
So this is another facilities question. Have you considered ground leases and long-term leases of underutilized facilities such as historical Alameda High, or historic, I guess, Alameda High School, and others to create additional revenue streams for the district?
So I think these are the kinds of ideas that are going to come out of these meetings. We have done ground leases. As you all know, Boys and Girls Club is a 99-year lease. There are community members that have come forward to want to look at the island site. So we're looking at all the liability issues of what you would do and how that would work. And we'll be reporting back to the board about that. Unfortunately, it's kind of back to the Division of State Architecture. We have a whole lot of bureaucratic rules that we have to follow as a public entity in school district. But these are the kinds of creative ideas that I think we're going to need to figure out historic Alameda High School. So I'm looking forward to those conversations.
When we began the master plan project in 2009, there was criticism from the community, even though we had 37 meetings, that the district and the board were driving the outcomes. Having listened to the community, we now have a process where we have a community mediator, Jeff Canberra, that would be facilitating this meeting with the different stakeholders. So we are able to listen to the different suggestions from the different stakeholders and to discern in regards to what would be the best approach in resolving the question of the use of the historic Alameda site.
Thank you, and those of us that have been involved in the schools for many years and remember back in the 70s, discussions about the high school building. Those long memories. They both give us some hope that we're still discussing it, and they give us some weariness about how long that's been under discussion. There was another one that talked about crowding in, there was somebody heard a little difference between crowding in the district or in the district meeting space and vacant properties. So how do we work out the highest and best use, I think, is the question of the properties that we have now, so that we don't crowd ourselves. How other than the high school, is there a process that's going on for that?
Help me understand crowding. I don't know what that means.
Well, there was a mention earlier that we're squeezed for space, and then there was a mention that we have space. Otherwise, we have underutilized facilities. So how do we winnow that out? How do we make the decision that each space, do we have some kind of a chart or a rubric that helps us to determine, or what's the process?
So we do have a district analysis on space. A classroom by classroom in the district, it's posted on our website. So we don't have hundreds of open classrooms at our schools. We're using them. So in some schools, this gets to the issue of equity as well. In some schools, we're using extra rooms to do reading and to do math intervention, and the Title I teacher or ELD teacher is in a room. So one of the things we've done as a school district is really support those extra rooms being supported by the students that need that support service, rather than, where would that teacher go to support a Title I student or an ELD student? They need a classroom. So you'll see in our Title I schools, there's greater space for those kinds of services. So we don't have hundreds of open classrooms across the district. We have, the old island site is now a vacant lot. So there's nothing to put there or do there. Alameda, out at the point, we can't use that space. As I said, that's an expected space whenever the point is completed years from now, but we do have a right to acreage out there. And then the tidelands, we can't use that space. So it's warehouse space and actual boat slips. It's not school space. So we don't have extra space that can be used for schools and classrooms. There just isn't any. We actually, I'd heard this so many times from community members, from teachers, from classified staff, that we actually put a survey out to employees and said, tell us where there's extra space, where we could put the district office. Tell us exactly. Give us the solution, because I can't find it. We don't have it. And to be honest, not one person responded to the survey. There just isn't the space in order to do that. And so I think when we talk about, being squeezed, there may be like one classroom at, let's say at Haight, or two, maybe there are three actually. And what we're thinking about doing with that is actually opening our transitional kindergarten. It's a program that the state is expecting for us to start this year, that we're working on, and it's still undecided, but nonetheless, that's how we're going to use those three classrooms. So there isn't extra space, even though we're squeezed. I think part of this facilities plan and work is, once we go through historic Alameda High School, then we really have to look at the rest of the district. So this is going to be a much greater community engagement over next year to say, what is the best use of our facilities beyond historic Alameda High School? And how do we then go about fixing the $92 million worth of things that are broken, including the pools, including, just maintenance and repairs that, with the best of intentions, we have not been able to keep up with the fiscal crisis in the state of California.
One of the challenges in my 39 years in the district is that schools go into cycles. The elementary school population will have grown to capacity. Then they move on to the middle school. And then the middle school bulges out, and you have to find room and space. And then the elementary school shrinks. And so it seems like a 3-4 year cycle. And then the high school, we didn't have the same problem. And challenge for the district is in regards to how many projected classes are needed. And sometimes this is a moving target. So I just want to share with you that there is that cycle that happens every 3 to 5 years, where we have a bulge in number of elementary schools that move 10, 3, 4 years to the high school, to middle school, and then to high school.
Thank you. There's a question here about the parcel tax, but I think we will defer it. There was an article in the Sun today about the major H in the lawsuit and what's going to happen, and that was somewhat addressed by Kirsten. here is our last question. What practices have been or are being put into place to bring West End schools up to the same technology level as East End schools, especially the new innovative program schools? For example, smart boards, iPads, and so on for all classrooms and students.
So we know that Mr. Shemwell and Rob Van Herk, our technology director, have done some work to do an inventory to first understand where are our oldest computers? Where do we have to start replacing computers? Measure A has been a great support, as I mentioned earlier, in starting by looking at infrastructure, because that's, you can't put in a lab if you don't have all the drops. And so we've had to do a lot of work like that with technology dollars first, so that we're then prepared to buy the actual technology. We've done some support for individual schools. I think Ruby Bridges may be one where we have just recently spent more money at Ruby Bridges to replace computers in order to support Success Maker. So it's a math intervention program that we have across the district, kindergarten through 8th grade. And then what we've done is divided that Measure A money so that each school can decide for themselves, how do you want to use the dollars? And so we have divided it $11 per student in order for school sites to sit and say, okay, we want computers, or we want smart boards, or we want iPads. I think one of the things that's really important, along with purchasing the technology, is then support, both in being able to fix that technology when it breaks or is down, and then secondarily, professional development for teachers. So we don't want to just put a smart board in every classroom when we have not supported and prepared a teacher to use that smart board or to use those iPads effectively. And so those are places that we have really done some targeted support. And I think as this next set of Measure A dollars rolls out, it will roll out both this year's dollars and next year's dollars together, so $22 per student, so that school sites can really decide what's best for them. In addition, we're looking at how we implement Common Core. So at the beginning of all this, I talked about those national standards. And so one of the things that's tied to those national standards is a new testing system. So whether we agree or disagree with the testing system, the new testing system will be computer-based. Again, those are based on today's assumptions that we know will change, I'm sure, many times before this is actually implemented in 14-15. But kind of like the GRE, young people will have to be on a computer. They'll take a test rather than it just being multiple choice. Each question will then be affected by whether they answer the first question correctly or incorrectly, changing the questions all the way along the way. So part of this planning with the $22 per student is then thinking about, how do we prepare for Common Core so that we also have carts on wheels, they're lovingly called cows, so that young people can, today this class is tested, the next day, because the window for testing will be much greater. So we're really in this neat, wonderful place, especially with the support of Measure A, to be able to plan and think about what is the best use of those dollars and how do we support school sites individually, because we know the decisions have to be made closest to the classroom with teachers and principals. At the same time, we are in the process of completing our technology plan, which it's right now, as I had said, we have an education technology committee up and running with teachers, and we're really trying to figure out what is the best route for the next 3 to 5 years. And one of the things that the Measure A Oversight Committee talked about was that how important it was that we have a plan, that we're using the dollars against a plan. So all of these sort of work streams are in parallel tracks so that we're both doing what we plan to do, but at the same time spending the dollars to get technology into the classrooms, but doing it in a really smart, strategic way. We also matched this year EIA dollars, so Economic Impact Aid dollars. So for young people, it's categorical for state funding. For young people at Title I schools, so greater technology to Title I schools, what are those needs? And so I think we were able to match a few $100,000 in order to support those computers. And again, that's how Ruby Bridges got computers, and we're looking at the other Title I schools as well. So.
Well, thank you. So as I said, that would be our last question, and I want to go back to Gretchen's announcement about another program on a subject that is near and dear to most of our hearts, healthcare. Gretchen? Yeah, real loud, in your big teacher voice. She can use her, she probably could use, yeah, she could use her she has a teacher voice.
Okay, so on the 13th of this month, it's Saturday evening, at the library, the date is Saturday, the 13th of April. Saturday, 13th of April. 7 o'clock.
At the library.
At the library in the back, The back will be open, the front isn't open, so come around the back.
From the parking lot through the garden.
Good.
Okay. All right. As we always do at the end of our presentations, and we thank you all again for coming tonight and asking lots and lots of very good questions, and we thank our speakers, Neil Tam and Kristen Vitale, for agreeing to come tonight to share information with us. We'd like to tell you about a couple of things. One is membership in the League of Women Voters is open to both men and women. And anybody who is interested in becoming a member, we have membership brochures. Did we also get our representatives here? Who our representatives are?
The trifold?
Yeah.
No,
No. Okay.
Still
All right. We also do a brochure that says who's representing us with all of their contact information. And we didn't bring them tonight, but at other meetings, certainly when you go to meet your public officials, at other meetings you'll be seeing those. They kind of go out of being current about 2 minutes after we print them. So what we do, we keep them on the computer and we only print as we need them. Because we know that these people are in and out of office or changing where their offices are, their phone numbers or their fax numbers or whatever. But we have membership brochures, and we are most interested in having people join us in our important work, which is voter education, and what we're doing tonight, which is civic engagement. And again, those of you that had questions that you wanted to direct personally to one of our speakers, get in touch with them. Go on their website and find their contact information and make an appointment or call them up and see if you can get some time and just talk through personally what your issues are. The League is going to be working and has already started working with the school district on transparency and sunshine issues. We successfully did that with the city over the last few years, and we're just starting that process now with the school district in hopes that we can use some of our expertise to help the citizens of Alameda understand more fully what goes on at the schools and get good information in a timely way. So thank you all for coming, and good night. Well, and thanks Cardinal Point too. I think that they've